Welcome to EPG Pathashala. I am Ravi Korisetter, UGC Emeritus Fellow, Department of History and Archaeology, Karnataka University, Dharwad. In the previous presentation, we obtained a glimpse of various scientific techniques that are being employed in archaeological investigations to be able to reconstruct the prehistoric past as completely as possible. These scientific techniques as well as methods have been very essential for developing a holistic reconstruction of lifeways of prehistoric communities. And inevitability of the scientific methods has been fully realized in archaeological reconstructions, because without the help of scientific methods, particularly dating methods and knowledge of geological stratigraphic principles and geomorphological principles and such other related sciences, one cannot understand the way in which landscapes were put to effective use by the early settlers in different parts of the Indian subcontinent or elsewhere. Here we would like to go little more in detail about remote sense technology that has been very effectively employed by archaeologists in collaboration with the space scientists to make the most efficient employment of remote sense technologies for discovering archaeological sites. Aerial surveys and more particularly documenting complete sites and excavations can be traced back to World War I and military reconnaissance. The pioneering work of O.G.S. Crawford in England, the Father Antonio Piedward in Syria, and Smith in Iran ushered this new field, which started with the principle of taking near vertical and oblique angled aerial photographs in different light conditions to discover, locate, and document archaeological sites and monuments. The airborne photography was later modified to suit the documentation necessities of archaeologists, and low altitude photography played a crucial role in our understanding of excavated structures and monuments. The photographic equipment can be mounted in a balloon, kite, ladder, or a boom mast depending upon the necessity. Depending upon the availability of high resolution equipments and area to be surveyed, different features like crop and soil marks in a landscape are clearly observable in aerial photographs that may indicate burial features. Considerable advancements have been made in aerial photographic techniques with the development of drone technology or unmanned aerial vehicles. Low altitude aero modeling can be achieved. Further, the drones can also be fitted with different sensors like thermal, infrared, and light detection and ranging to enhance the images to even detect subsurface features like ditches, moats, etc. Aerial thermography, the airborne and satellite images have their own disadvantages in detecting subsurface features. These techniques have been found very useful in minimizing physical effort of archaeologists in identifying archaeological features on land which are otherwise not visible from the ground. And information gathered from aerial surveys can be subject to ground testing and establish the presence or absence of archaeological features of significance. Significance of the role of scientific instrumentation techniques in archaeological reconnaissance hardly needs emphasis, be it in the form of a simply handheld geographical positioning systems for recording location details of artifacts to structures, but also sophisticated equipments like drone and laser scanners. One of the advantages of geophysical tools is that it can cover large areas of landscape for detecting the buried architectural features. There are two categories of geophysical methods, viz. Passive and active methods. Under the passive method, magnetic prospecting, gravitational surveying, and self-potential techniques are used for detecting buried features. Among these three techniques, the SP is considered to be the least expensive geophysical method for detecting archaeological features. The techniques under active methods are seismic or acoustic, electromagnetic, resistivity or galvanic, and ground penetrating radar. The seismic method involves transmission of sound waves and measurement of time of reflected ones based on density variation of buried structures. The advantages of employing all these geospatial techniques have been fully realized in the Indian context, especially in the last 10 years. There have been very many examples of successful application of remote sense technology for detecting archaeological sites on larger landscapes have been achieved. When it comes to dating methods, there are two categories of dating methods which are generally grouped as geochronological methods. Absolute dating and relative dating methods are very common in archaeology. While stratigraphy gives us a relative chronology of archaeological cultures, there are methods like radiocarbon dating, thermoluminescence dating, optically stimulated luminescence dating, and such dating methods are directly applicable on archaeological materials. Whereas long time range radio dating methods such as potassium argon, fission track, and argon argon dating methods are helpful in establishing chronology of archaeological contexts in respect to geological contexts in which the archaeological materials have been found. In addition to that, dating methods such as archaeomagnetism is not very common among archaeologists for establishing chronology. It is based on the principle that at archaeological sites, mineral particles were magnetized at a specific time when the materials were heated, chemically changed or deposited. This magnetization can be used for relative or absolute dating. The study of magnetic properties of archaeological materials may also be of value in provenance studies, in the sense to be able to identify the source of a particular material which was utilized by ancient communities, reconstructing artifacts and evaluating the nature of past technologies as well. Tephrochronology is an emerging and most widely employed dating method in geochronology. In the Indian subcontinent, there are numerous sites which have been found to contain layers of tephra or volcanic ash. It is also known as volcanic tuff. Tephra are fragments of solid materials such as crystal, glass, and rock ejected into the air by a volcanic eruption. Tephrochronology is an area which specializes in dating these volcanic ashes, particularly the glass shards which are syngenetic with volcanic eruption. And tephrostratigraphers study deposits and samples of these materials in order to characterize, correlate, and date them. Characterization helps in identifying the source of this particular ash, which has been found to occur in areas away from the areas of volcanic eruption. Tephra layers are very useful in correlating strata across a particular geographical area, because these tephra layers are considered marker beds, and marker beds help in identifying the relationship between various types of geological strata from one region to another region. And tephra chronology is absolute dating method which employs fission track dating, potassium argon dating, as well as argon argon dating. All these methods provide accurate age of the date of eruption, and this particular date obtained for volcanic material such as tephra helps in understanding the archaeological context in which these tephras have been found. For example, sites like Jalapuram in Andhra Pradesh, a tephra layer occurs above the middle Paleolithic horizon, and there is it has also been found there is a continuity of human occupation even after the ash fall. Now this ash has been dated to 74,000 years, and the Middle Paleolithic artifacts come from below this volcanic ash layer at a depth which is dated to about 77,000 years ago. This is for the first time we have an absolute date for the Middle Paleolithic in the Indian subcontinent. Tephra or volcanic ash, where it is thick, protects buried lithic and faunal materials. For example, in Africa, the fossil remains of human ancestors have been found buried under these volcanic ashes. Although volcanic eruption and ashfall pollute the environment and cause large scale destruction, they are at the same time act as preservators, and organic material, particularly plant and animal and human remains, if they are buried under volcanic ash, they are subject to fossilization and they are preserved forever. As a result of this particular relationship between tephra and the organic material buried underneath, we have been able to reconstruct human evolution in an absolute time frame, either in Africa or in Southeast Asia. In India, there are a few studies helping in dating Pleistocene sites, and also these dates have implications for reconstructing human expansion out of Africa into Indian subcontinent. Bioarchaeology is an important area where archaeological cultures can be reconstructed as completely as possible. Bioarchaeology specifically refers to understanding human relationship with plant and animal kingdom. At the same time, bioarchaeology has developed a specialized area known as archaeoanthropology, which helps us in understanding the biological characteristics of prehistoric populations. Under this broad heading, a study of biological remains from archaeological contexts is carried out under different specializations, including archaeobotany, archaeoethnobotany, archaeozoology, archaeoanthropology, etc. These studies have developed distinctive subdisciplines by adopting aims and methods suitable for reconstructing man-plant, man-animal, and human biological development, and so on. During the early days of the development of this area of study, it used to be referred to as paleoethnobotany, which focused on the study of remains of plants cultivated or utilized by man in prehistoric times. Since Neolithic times, paleoethnobotany is concerned with the analysis and interpretation of archaeobotanical remains in order to reconstruct the nature of interaction of humans and plants in terms of how plants are used as fields, foods, medicines, and in ritual. How seasonality of plant availability affects settlement systems, the extent and nature of man-plant interdependency, and the impact of humans on plants. Another term for archaeobotany is archaeoethnobotany, which was used to refer to identification of plant remains retrieved from excavations in connection with cultural associations and radiocarbon dating. Later, archaeobotany came to be used, which refers to study of plant remains derived from archaeological contexts. It refers to recovery and identification of plants by specialists from Paleolithic to the modern times. Another branch of archaeological science is archaeozoology. In terms of aims and objectives, archaeozoology is similar to archaeobotany. Here the emphasis is on animal and man relationship. There are no terminological debates, and specialists like work on reconstructing man-animal interdependence, tracing the origins of animal domestication and the economic importance of domesticated animals. For details, I would like to advise the reader to consult Archaeozoology module by P.P. Joglekar in the paper on Pre- and Protohistoric Cultures of India. The module is number 10, entitled Human-Animal Interaction. Man-animal relationship goes back to the Paleolithic times, as many wild animals were hunted for subsistence, and with the beginning of agricultural way of life, select animals were captured and bred for assured subsistence economy. The results of archaeozoological studies can be summarized as follows. Southwest Asia was the region where the archaeological record reveals the earliest evidence for domestication of sheep, goat, and cattle dating back to about 11,000 years ago. And some of these animals which were domesticated in that region were gradually introduced into neighboring geographical environments where systematic domestication and animal herding continued to develop and gave rise to Neolithic and Chalcolithic way of life. In the Indian subcontinent, the earliest evidence of domestication of sheep, goat, and cattle comes from the site of Mehergarh in the Bolan Valley in present-day Pakistan. Archaeoanthropology is a branch of archaeological science which deals with the study of human remains from archaeological contexts to be able to reconstruct biological and cultural aspects of human population. And in summary, it can be stated that the study of human remains recovered from archaeological sites facilitates the interpretation of lifetime events such as migrations, diet, disease, physiological stress, injury, and violent death, physical activity, and the demographic history of once living populations. I'd like to recommend the reader to consult archaeoanthropology model prepared by Veena Mushrif for the paper on pre and protohistoric cultures of India. In archaeoanthropological investigations, one is often faced by the problem of lack of good number of skeletal remains to represent a population, and it becomes difficult to generate any kind of information from available scanty and fragmentary remains. The challenge of reconstructing life of extinct human ancestors from their skeletal remains is the domain of the anthropologists. By applying their knowledge of skeletal biology to paleodemographic questions, they contribute to archaeological investigations of extinct populations and help solve medical legal problems in forensic investigations as well. Archaeogenetics is the new and emerging area of research which is of great relevance in understanding origins and spread of human populations. It aims at tracing the origins, evolution, expansion, and chronology of human ancestors based on the study of ancient DNA molecules in terms of mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome. These are preserved in fossilized bones of Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens from different archaeological contexts in Europe and Northern Asia. So far, such studies have not been possible in India for lack of fossil evidence. These studies have helped in understanding whether modern humans emerged as separate species roughly 200,000 years ago in Africa, or as the consequence of evolution within a polytypic species spread across the world. Archaeolinguistics is another area which is gaining attention among archaeologists to be able to understand the manner in which human populations were expanding, and since the beginning of agricultural way of life, how the Neolithic way of life originated in different parts of the world and spread across is also, and that it is also accompanied by spread of language families, is the governing principle of archaeolinguistic studies. The centers of discussion being Central Asia and Southwest Asia. Colin Renfrew and Peter Bellwood have pioneered research in this area. It is suggested that origins of agriculture supported population growth and in turn triggered population movements, which in turn displaced or absorbed the much smaller forager populations. Population movements since the Neolithic times have resulted in widespread occurrence of different language families with their centers of origin either in Southwest Asia or Central Asia. This is also reflected in DNA studies of modern populations in the Indian subcontinent. The linguistic geography and phylogeny of Indo-European point towards Central Asia as the region with languages most closely related to the Indic languages of India, and most evidence is argued to suggest the dispersal of Indo-European languages westwards to Europe in the Bronze Age, which has received recent support from archaeological DNA studies. The timing of their arrival in the subcontinent is still unclear, but genetic evidence does support mixing between ancestral South Indian and Central Asian related to northern Indians over the past 4200 years. Although a case can be made that Dravidian languages of India do indeed have a plausible distant relationship with ancient Elamite languages. In summary, I would like to mention that in these two presentations we have given emphasis on the scientific techniques that are being increasingly employed in archaeological research, and new areas of subdisciplines of archaeology, especially archaeogenetics, archaeolinguistics, and remote sensing in archaeology. While some of these techniques are useful in carrying out field archaeological investigations, other techniques that we have summarized in these two presentations are helpful in looking at the data that archaeologists recover through exploration as well as excavation. It has been found critical that unless there is an active collaboration between archaeologists and various scientists, it is not possible to reconstruct the life phase of ancient societies. If archaeobotanists are not involved in archaeological excavation of early agricultural settlements belonging to either Neolithic or Chalcolithic period, we will never be able to identify the nature of agriculture that was practiced by the Neolithic communities in different geographical environments. It is also necessary to trace the origins of agricultural way of life in different geographical areas based on identification of archaeobotanical remains, especially seeds, grains, as well as parenchyma tissues that are preserved in archaeological layers. A specialist archaeobotanist can only help us in identifying whether these archaeobotanical remains recovered from different archaeological layers represent native crops or crops that were introduced from different areas. Now, this has helped in the Indian context. They have been able to identify distinctive areas where agricultural origins were dependent on exploitation of native millets. For example, in southern India, in Neolithic culture, it has been found that agricultural way of life in the early stages was based on cultivating local millets as early as 3rd millennium BC. Similarly, Gujarat region has also been identified as independent center of agricultural origins where millets were cultivated. On the other hand, in eastern India, in Orissa and in the middle Ganga valley, we have clear evidence of early cultivation of rice, early cultivation of rice by the Neolithic community around the beginning of 2nd millennium BC and so. Archaeozoology, zoological research has also helped us in identify those animals which were first domesticated and those animals which were domesticated in the Neolithic context as well as Chalcolithic context in different parts of the Indian subcontinent. Now, understanding the man-animal relationship is also equally important because agricultural way of life was characterized by domestication of both plants and animals. So, tracing the origins of agricultural way of life has been an important area of research in Indian archaeology, and understanding the origins and development that gradually agricultural way of life that gradually gave rise to the emergence of civilized civilizations in the Indus Valley and elsewhere can be understood on a scientific footing. Archaeoanthropological research has also benefited archaeologists in identifying the factors responsible for demographic variation during the time period when early agricultural settlements came into existence in different parts of the Indian subcontinent. Dating methods are very, very important role in establishing prehistoric chronology. Now, the time depth of these dating methods are very, very important. While some dating methods can go back several thousand years, there are methods which go back to hundreds of thousands of years. For example, fission track dating, potassium argon dating, and so on. In Indian archaeology, the radiocarbon dating has been extensively been extensively used, and an absolute time frame has been developed for the development of Indus Valley civilization in the northwestern part of the subcontinent, development of Neolithic cultures, Chalcolithic cultures, and Iron Age cultures across different geographical areas. As I mentioned earlier, the tephrochronology of volcanic ash from different regions of the subcontinent has been subject to series of investigations and as well as debates. And in conclusion, we can say that the volcanic ash that has been found in different parts of the subcontinent is of Sumatran origin, belongs to an eruption that occurred 74,000 years ago. And this has been found in a number of river valleys in central India, eastern India, and southern India, where we have also found archaeological material occurring below this layer. As a result of this particular relationship between volcanic ash and the archaeological material, it has now been possible to date the Middle Paleolithic culture in the Indian subcontinent. For more details, I would like the readers to go through the e-text of this particular module, and the references given there will be much more useful for understanding in greater detail various aspects of different varieties of sciences that have been of use in reconstructing the prehistoric past as completely as possible. Thank you.